The email arrived at 2:17 in the afternoon. I remember the exact time because I was reaching for my coffee mug when the notification popped up and the ceramic slipped from my fingers, shattering against my desk. Hot liquid splashed across my keyboard, but I barely noticed. My eyes were fixed on the subject line, "Your husband isn't who you think he is." I'm Alyssa, and until that moment, I thought I had everything figured out. Successful career, beautiful condo overlooking the city, and a marriage that made my friends envious. The kind of life that looks perfect in Instagram posts. The cursor hovered over the delete button. Spam, probably. Another scam attempt. But something made me click it open instead. Check the attached photo. Taken yesterday at Bella Luna restaurant. My hands trembled as I downloaded the image. There was Scott, my husband of 18 months, sitting at our favorite restaurant. His hand rested on top of another woman's, their fingers intertwined across the white tablecloth. The intimacy of the gesture felt like a punch to the gut. I zoomed in on her face. Young, beautiful, wearing the kind of confident smile that comes from feeling desired. The timestamp showed 8:43 p.m. when Scott had told me he was working late on a client project. My phone buzzed. Speaking of the devil. "Hey babe, just checking if you want me to pick up dinner on my way home." I stared at his message, imagining him typing it with the same hands that had held hers. "Actually, I'm craving Italian. How about Bella Luna?" Three dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. They're usually packed on weekdays. Maybe somewhere else? "You're right," I typed back, my fingers steady now. "Wouldn't want to wait for a table like we did yesterday." No response. The dots appeared and vanished several times. Finally, "What are you talking about?" I closed my eyes, remembering our wedding day. Scott's voice cracking during his vows, promising honesty and faithfulness. His mother Nancy dabbing at her tears in the front row, whispering about how lucky she was to gain such a wonderful daughter-in-law. "Never mind," I wrote. "Chinese is fine." I opened my bottom drawer and pulled out a fresh notebook. On the first page, I wrote the date and time. Below it, I pasted a printout of the photo. This would be the first piece of evidence in what was about to become a very detailed record. Scott had no idea, but he'd just started a war. And I intended to win it. The doorbell chimed just as I was adding another photo to my evidence folder. Nancy stood at the door, clutching her signature peach cobbler, her smile too bright for 8 in the morning. I was in the neighborhood, she chirped, bustling past me into the kitchen. The same excuse she'd used 3 times this week. I forced myself to breathe slowly, watching as she rearranged my coffee mugs to make space for her dish. Ever since the wedding, she'd treated our home like an extension of hers. Usually, it was merely annoying. Today, with the weight of Scott's betrayal still fresh, her presence felt like sandpaper on raw skin. "Scott's not here," I said, knowing full well she knew his schedule better than I did. "Oh, I came to see you, dear." She paused, studying my face. "You look tired. Is everything all right?" The concern in her voice made my stomach twist. I wondered if she knew about her son's extracurricular activities. If she'd helped cover for him before. Just work stress. I busied myself with the coffee maker, avoiding her eyes. "Big project deadline. Scott mentioned you've been distant lately." She settled at the kitchen island, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against the marble. "He's worried about you." Of course he was. I'd maintained the facade of normalcy for 3 days, but apparently not well enough. "Did he say anything else?" "Only that you've been working late." She leaned forward. "You know, marriage needs nurturing. Scott's father and I always made time for date nights, even when things were tight." I bit back a laugh. "Date nights? Like the one Scott had at Bella Luna." "Actually," I said, "an idea forming. I need to grab something from Scott's office." "Would you mind watching the coffee?" In his home office, I made a show of looking through his desk drawers while Nancy hovered in the doorway. Then, as if by accident, I knocked over his briefcase. Papers spilled across the floor. "Oh, let me help." Nancy rushed forward as I gathered them up. A small key fell from between some documents. "What's this for?" I asked innocently, holding it up. Nancy frowned. "That looks like the key to his storage unit." The one he rented last month for his old design portfolios. Storage unit. First I'd heard of it. I pocketed the key while Nancy wasn't looking, adding another piece to the puzzle. Found what I needed, I announced, holding up a random folder. Shall we have that coffee? Back in the kitchen, Nancy launched into a story about Scott's childhood, something about his inherent honesty and good heart. I nodded at all the right moments, my mind already planning my next move. The storage unit would have to wait until Scott left for his client meeting tonight. I had a feeling I'd find more than old portfolios there. The storage unit was on the outskirts of town, tucked between abandoned warehouses. Unit 247. My hands shook as I fitted the key into the lock, the metal scraping against metal in the darkness. Inside, stacked boxes lined the walls, not portfolios, but something far more damning. Credit card statements, bank documents, rental agreements. Each one a carefully hidden piece of Scott's double life. My phone buzzed. Megan, where are you? It's nearly midnight. I found something. My voice sounded strange, distant. Can you come? She arrived 15 minutes later, her heels clicking against concrete. One look at the documents spread across the floor, and her lawyer instincts kicked in. These are forgeries, she said, examining a lease agreement. Really good ones. The signatures, the notary stamps, all fake. I held up a stack of receipts. Designer watches, jewelry, weekend getaways. My throat tightened, all while he told me we needed to budget more carefully for our future. Alyssa. Megan hesitated. There's more. She handed me a folder labeled Investment Properties. Inside were documents for a beachfront condo purchased 6 months ago. The same month Scott had convinced me to invest most of my savings in his new business venture. My phone lit up. Scott. Hey babe, running late. Client meeting went longer than expected. I checked the time. 12:47 a.m. No problem, I typed back. Take your time. Megan touched my arm. What are you going to do? Before I could answer, headlights swept across the storage unit's entrance. A car door slammed. Hide, I whispered, pushing her behind a stack of boxes. Scott appeared in the doorway, his silhouette frozen against the darkness. Behind him, a woman's laugh echoed through the night. Just grabbing something quick, he called over his shoulder. Then he saw me. The color drained from his face. Alyssa? What are you? Client meeting? My voice was ice. A figure appeared behind him, young, beautiful, wearing an expensive dress I'd seen on one of those receipts. She looked between us, confusion clouding her features. Scott, she asked, what's going on? Jenna, wait in the car. No, I said. Stay. Let's all have a chat about Scott's investment properties. Or should we discuss the forged documents first? Scott stepped forward, hands raised. I can explain everything. Can you explain her? I gestured to Jenna. Or the $40,000 missing from our joint account? Jenna's eyes widened. Joint account? You said you were divorced. Scott's carefully constructed world was crumbling, and I felt something shift inside me. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was justice. Actually, I smiled. Let's start with the marriage license. The real one, not the fake divorce papers in that bottom drawer. 3 days after the storage unit confrontation, I sat across from Scott at our dining table, watching him eat the dinner I'd prepared. He hadn't mentioned that night, and neither had I. The air between us crackled with unspoken accusations. This is delicious, he said, reaching for my hand. I let him take it, suppressing the urge to recoil. I've been thinking about what you said about starting a family. My fork clattered against the plate. Have you? Maybe we should start trying. Show my mother she'll be a grandmother soon. He squeezed my hand. Give her something else to focus on besides dropping by unannounced. The casual manipulation in his voice made my skin crawl. I thought about the pregnancy test I'd found in the storage unit, buried among Jenna's things. Dated 2 weeks ago. Actually, I said, withdrawing my hand, I've been thinking about our finances. His chewing slowed. What about them? The investment you convinced me to make. I'd like to see the quarterly reports. Those won't be ready for another month. He reached for his wine glass. Besides, you know I handle all that. You hate paperwork. My phone buzzed. A text from Jenna. We need to talk. Alone. Excuse me, I said, standing. Work emergency. In our bedroom, I called Megan. I need a favor. That friend at the bank. Already done, she said. The transfers were all routed through shell companies. He's been doing this for years, Alyssa. You're not the first. The floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet. What do you mean? There were 2 other marriages before you. Both annulled within 2 years. Both women invested heavily in his business ventures before he disappeared with everything. I thought about the family photos Nancy proudly displayed, no wives, just Scott through the years. The way she never mentioned his past relationships. She had to know. My phone buzzed again. Jenna, I'm pregnant. He says he's leaving you for me. Is he lying about that too? Through the door, I heard Scott on his phone, speaking softly. Everything's fine, baby. She doesn't suspect anything. 2 more weeks and the money will clear. Then we'll have everything we planned. I opened my laptop and accessed our joint account. The balance that had shown $167,000 yesterday now read $43.52. The rage I'd been suppressing crystallized into something cold and precise. Scott wasn't just a cheater, he was a professional con man. And his mother wasn't just an annoying mother-in-law, she was his accomplice. I texted Jenna back, meet me tomorrow. Bring everything you have on him. It's time we compared notes. This wasn't about saving my marriage anymore. It was about making sure Scott never did this to another woman again. Nancy's perfectly manicured nails drummed against her teacup as I showed her the photos from Scott's previous weddings. 3 ceremonies, 3 women, 3 elaborate cons. Each picture showed the same proud mother beaming beside her son. I don't know what you expect me to say, she said, but her hand trembled as she set down her cup. The truth would be nice. I spread out bank statements showing transfers between her account and Scott's. Like why you helped him target these women. Helped him? Her laugh was brittle. I protected him. Do you know what his father did to us? Left us with nothing but debt and shame. I taught Scott to be strong, to take control of his life. By destroying other people's lives? Her eyes hardened. Those women were foolish. They wanted the fantasy, the charming husband, the perfect life. Scott gave them what they wanted for a while. My phone buzzed. Jenna, he's moving money again. Large transfers. Says we're leaving the country next week. I kept my face neutral as Nancy watched me. And what fantasy did he sell you, Nancy? The devoted son who'd never abandon his mother. Color drained from her face. What do you mean? Scott's planning to disappear. With Jenna. With the money. Without you. You're lying. But uncertainty crept into her voice. Check your accounts, I said softly. The joint ones you think are so secret. See how much is left. She pulled out her phone, fingers shaking as she logged in. I watched the realization hit her, watched decades of careful manipulation crumble into dust. That's not possible, she whispered. He wouldn't. He already has. Just like his father did. Nancy's composure shattered. Tears smeared her perfect makeup as she scrolled through her empty accounts. Everything. My retirement, my house. Help me stop him, I said, sliding a folder across the table. These documents prove the fraud. 1 call to the FBI and we can end this. But I need your testimony. She looked up, something dangerous flickering in her eyes. He's my son. He's a con man who learned from the best. I stood, gathering the evidence. You taught him too well, Nancy. Now he's conned his own mother. My phone buzzed again. Scott, coming home early. Have something important to discuss. Think about it, I told Nancy. But think fast. In a week, you'll never see him or your money again. And the next time he surfaces, it'll be with another woman, another mother-in-law, another perfect lie. I left her sitting there, staring at her empty accounts, knowing the storm I'd just unleashed would either destroy everything or give me exactly what I needed to bring Scott down. The game was changing. Now I just had to survive the next move. The restaurant buzzed with Friday night energy as I watched Scott charm our dinner companions. Nancy sat to his right, her usual confidence replaced by a brittle smile. Across from me, Jenna fidgeted with her water glass, one hand resting protectively over her stomach. To family, Scott raised his glass. And new beginnings. The irony made my teeth ache. In his pocket was a one-way ticket to Buenos Aires. In mine, a USB drive containing evidence of every fraud he'd ever committed. Speaking of family, Nancy's voice quavered. Tell them your news, Scott. He shot her a warning look. Mother, not now. About the baby? I asked innocently. Or about the money you stole from your mother's retirement account? The silence that followed was absolute. Scott's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something cold and dangerous underneath. I don't know what you're talking about, he said, but his eyes darted between Nancy and Jenna. Really? I pulled out my phone, displaying the bank transfers. Because these show. Shut up. The words came like a whip rack. He grabbed my wrist under the table, squeezing until I felt bones grind together. You have no idea what you're doing. Scott? Jenna's voice trembled. You said you were divorced. He says that to all his wives, Nancy cut in. Didn't he tell you about the others? Scott stood abruptly, his chair scraping across the floor. We're leaving. Now. No. I yanked my wrist free. We're finishing this. His laugh was ugly. Finish what? You've got nothing. No money, no evidence. Check your phone again, sweetheart. Your cloud account's been wiped clean. My blood ran cold. I opened my files, everything was gone. The photos, the documents, the transfers. All erased. Amazing what you can do with someone's passwords, he smirked. You really should be more careful about leaving your laptop open. I trusted you, Jenna whispered. That was your mistake. He turned to Nancy. And yours. Did you really think I'd let you keep that money? After what you did to Dad? Nancy recoiled as if slapped. I protected you. You used me. Taught me how to con people, then got jealous when I got better at it than you. He stood, straightening his jacket. Goodbye, Mother. Alyssa. Jenna. It's been educational. He walked out, leaving us sitting there with our shattered illusions and empty accounts. 3 women, 3 different kinds of betrayal, all orchestrated by the same master manipulator. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Scott. Thanks for playing. Better luck next time. I looked at Nancy and Jenna, seeing my own devastation mirrored in their faces. We had nothing left except each other and a shared desire for justice. Maybe that would be enough. The airport terminal buzzed with early morning travelers as I watched Scott check in for his flight to Buenos Aires. He hadn't noticed me yet, hadn't seen Nancy and Jenna positioned at the other exits, hadn't spotted Megan talking to airport security. My phone vibrated. A message from his latest target, a wealthy widow he'd been grooming online while planning his escape. The same widow whose brother happened to be the FBI's financial crimes director. I approached just as Scott collected his boarding pass. Leaving so soon? He froze, then recovered with that practiced smile. Alyssa, come to say goodbye. Something like that. I nodded to the security officers approaching behind him. Though your other wives might want a word first. His eyes darted toward the exits, calculating. Whatever you think you have. We have everything. Nancy's voice cut through the air as she emerged from the crowd. The offshore accounts. The fake identities. Even those files you thought you deleted. Mother. His voice turned cold. Still trying to control everything? No. She stepped closer. Still trying to fix my mistakes. Jenna appeared on his other side, holding up her phone. The transfers just cleared. Every penny back where it belongs. The confidence in Scott's expression cracked. He reached for his phone, probably to check his accounts, but security was faster. As they moved to intercept him, he lunged forward, shoving me hard against a pillar. You think this changes anything? He snarled. I'll start over. I always do. Not this time. I straightened, ignoring the pain in my shoulder. Check your new girlfriend's last name again. Catherine Bishop? Her brother's been very interested in your financial history. The color drained from his face as realization hit. Behind him, FBI agents appeared, badges glinting under fluorescent lights. You taught me well, Scott. I stepped closer, keeping my voice low. About trust. About patience. About waiting for the perfect moment. I loved you, he whispered, but the words sounded hollow, rehearsed. No, you loved the game. I watched as agents approached. Game over. They led him away in handcuffs, past the women he'd betrayed, past the mother who'd created him, past the life he'd built on lies. He didn't look back. Nancy touched my arm. Was it worth it? I thought about the months of planning, the sleepless nights, the constant fear of discovery. Ask me tomorrow. Jenna joined us, one hand still resting on her stomach. What now? Now. I watched Scott disappear through security doors. We rebuild. Together. The morning sun streamed through terminal windows, casting long shadows behind us. Ahead, only light. The letter arrived on crisp courthouse stationery, announcing Scott's sentencing. 20 years for fraud, with no possibility of parole for at least 12. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt hollow. Nancy sat across from me at our regular coffee spot, her hands wrapped around a cooling latte. He's asking to see us. No. The word came automatically, but something made me hesitate. What did he say? That he has something we need to know. She pushed an envelope across the table. He sent this. Inside was a key and an address. No note, no explanation. Just like Scott, another game, another manipulation. I'm done playing his games, I said, but I didn't push the key back. Jenna joined us, easing into a chair with her growing belly. Maybe we need to know. For closure. She touched her stomach. The address led to a storage facility on the edge of town. Different from the first one. Unit 731. The key fitted perfectly. Inside, neatly labeled boxes lined the walls. Each contained documents, decades of cons, marks, and stolen lives. But it was the photos that caught my attention. Scott through the years, with different women, different families. Always smiling. Always lying. He documented everything, Nancy whispered, rifling through papers. Every con, every victim. Not documents, I realized. Evidence. Against himself. A final envelope sat on a shelf, marked with today's date. Inside, a single page in Scott's handwriting. You won. But winning wasn't enough, was it? You needed to understand. These are all my sins laid bare. Do with them what you will. Some secrets should stay buried, but these ones deserve the light. He's trying to manipulate us again, Jenna said, but her voice wavered. I looked at the boxes, at the lives destroyed, at the patterns that led to us. No, he's giving us a choice. Nancy picked up a photo, Scott as a child, with his father. The same smile. The same lies. What choice? Between justice and revenge. I touched the nearest box. Between exposing everything and letting some wounds heal. We stood there, 3 women bound by betrayal, surrounded by the evidence of a lifetime of deception. The choice hung between us like a living thing. My phone buzzed, a message from the prison. Scott requesting a meeting one last time. I looked at Nancy, at Jenna, at the truth boxes surrounding us. Sometimes revenge isn't about destroying someone. Sometimes it's about choosing when to stop. I deleted the message without responding. Some questions don't need answers. Some victories are measured in silence. We locked the unit behind us, keeping the key. Some choices take time to make.